My name is Era, and I'm the host of the Tamil Creator Podcast. I chat with creators from all over the world to share their stories and discuss hot topics in a way that I hope inspires, educates, and entertains you. Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Tamil Creator. I'm your host, Era, and today we have an awesome guest on the podcast. His name is Suresh. He asked me to say his full last name, so here he goes. Sri Sriskandarajah. Hopefully you got that, Suresh. And Suresh is a lawyer at, he has his own law firm called Suresh Law Professional Corporation. He's got a background in pretty much every degree, but, we'll just keep it at engineering and entrepreneurship. Over the course of his professional career, he's held a number of executive roles at organizations, including Amazon, Microsoft, BlackBerry. He's launched a bunch of ventures and he's mentoring a bunch of startups as well. He shows off by speaking English, French, and Tamil. And you know what I mean? Like in terms of this guy has a law degree, he has an MBA, he's got an engineering degree, and also a BA as well. So I'm sure there's more initials there somewhere that I can't find, but we'll kind of get more into all that Suresh does and how he finds time in 24 hours to, on top of that, be a family man and, be a human being on top of that. So I hope I did him justice with this intro, but Suresh, why don't you, tell people a little bit about yourself and your upbringing, and we'll kind of go from there.
Well, thank you, Era, for having me on this show, and I really appreciate it. And thanks for that intro. I think that's better than I could do. And people are probably going to think that I have multiple lives, but I actually try to keep things very simple and go with the flow. But yeah, thanks again for having me on.
Yeah, no problem. Why don't you tell everyone a bit about kind of your family and kind of just your upbringing, just to kind of before we kind of get more into the focus on your career and all the things you've kind of accomplished.
Yeah, I was born in Sri Lanka, right in the middle of the Civil War times, and I was born in Jaffna, in the northern part of Jaffna called Balbadithurai, VVT. And I came to Canada when I was 8 years old, to Montreal, and grew up in Montreal afterwards. Studied in French, and then moved to Toronto at the age of 13, with the goal of eventually going to Waterloo Engineering, because at that point we weren't a Canadian citizen, so being in Montreal, you had to pay to go to an English-speaking school. So I thought that would increase my chance, and instead of paying for school there, I might as well move to Toronto. So I moved alone at the age of 13 and lived with family friends, and that's pretty much my childhood in a nutshell.
Oh, wow. I didn't know about that part. So in Quebec, you have to pay to go to an English-speaking school. So
if you're not a citizen. So at that point, we were not Canadian citizens. So things may have changed now, but back then you would have to pay if you're going to an English-speaking school, if you're not a citizen. So instead of that, I thought I would just move to Toronto and explore and increase, my chance of getting into Waterloo Engineering. But,
I feel like I feel like that kind of choice where you move alone at that young age really forces you to kind of grow up faster than I would say, because I know other folks that have kind of made moves like that or like been forced to make moves like that, and they're like quite mature for their age, like even at a younger age because of something like that. Is that something that you found as well?
Yeah, I speak to my wife often about that. When I reflect back, I say, in hindsight, I don't know whether it was a good thing or a bad thing, but I missed a lot of my childhood by kind of, moving alone like that, and having to. I didn't have to, my family would have continued to support me, but I didn't want to rely on them given that they had very little resources. So I started working. I started working at the age of 11 to support my mother, and picking strawberries and things like that. But when I came to Toronto, I started delivering newspaper, and 1 year after, at 14, I was doing dishwashing. So I would hold multiple odd jobs to pay for myself, my expenses, and so on, right? So in that process, like going to school and working keeps you busy, keeps you out of trouble, but at the same time, you miss, part of your childhood by starting to work a little too early and maturing a little too early, right?
Yeah, I feel like every life experience, there's some kind of pro and con, if you want to look at it that way, in the sense that, do you feel like because you were forced to grow up in the sense that, like you said, you took on these jobs to kind of support yourself, even though you didn't have to, but you didn't want to, I guess, make yourself almost like a burden to your family. So you want to, make yourself independent. Do you think that kind of forced upon you at a young age this work ethic, or did you have that internally already before that?
No, I think that sense of responsibility and my work ethic came from a much younger age, from my days in Sri Lanka, and I learned those values from my family, from my immediate family members. So I was a good student, and overall I behaved as a child. But I think coming to Toronto and living alone, uh, made me go on that path further to try to be independent and have develop good work ethics, right? But also develop different skills because I was focused and driven on my goals of what I wanted to achieve. So I was always very driven from a young age. So since I had that goal of going to Waterloo, I was ready to do whatever it takes. So I kept working hard at it.
Yeah, I mean, I don't not believe that at all, because like I see you, or at least kind of what I know of you more recently, and just kind of all you're doing, and I just picture a mini version of you at that age, because with the same work ethic, you probably had Google Calendar back when you were 12 years old too. I don't know, but like I feel like I feel like you had. I just feel like it just makes sense who you are today, based on just hearing that story about kind of what you did when you were younger. So.
Actually, this is interesting. You may have noticed a video that I work, that I published, of me like running clips and so on, and there's one of the reasons I launched that video is it actually relates to me because at a young age in Montreal, I was part of the track and field team, and I made it all the way to the Canadian National Junior Olympics, and for 3,000 meters, I was a finalist. So I think like that running long distance, that endurance training also gave me that discipline to work hard and to stay driven. And then I kind of carried that over when I came to Toronto in terms of my work and studies as well. But you get discipline, self-discipline through doing sports as well, right? And for me, it's very true from that track and field days.
That's a good point. You kind of talked about, growing up in Sri Lanka, coming to Toronto. I mean, it's a common story for a lot of diaspora Tamils that, went to Canada, the UK, Australia, various kind of countries. There's a ton of stories around like, coming to a new country, our parents not knowing the language, us kind of having to grow up a little bit faster because we're, the oldest or like the first generation, and kind of seeing our parents struggle. Um, why, and then, often not being able to kind of get the jobs that they used to have in Sri Lanka. Like, you often have like people that were doctors, teachers, etc. Now doing more blue collar or, jobs that, you know, typically are looked down upon in the Tamil community. But out of that also comes like stories where people either just do those jobs or also make opportunities for themselves and turn themselves into entrepreneurs. And I've seen a lot of stories in the Tamil community kind of shaped with this kind of narrative. Do you think being an immigrant and also like someone that had to escape war and and go through those kind of hardships is kind of one of the reasons why so many Tamils, especially in the diaspora communities, become entrepreneurs? I'm just curious about that.
Yeah, I think so for sure because given when you're escaping traumatic situations like that, it causes you to be creative and look after yourself like a survival, and you want to do well, and you find creative ways to to be alive and also to make a living and to protect your family. So that kind of that drive kind of translates into entrepreneurial pursuits afterwards, and I see that, and that's why a lot of the immigrant community, they're successful because they're driven, they're motivated, they want to make up for things that they have lost, or they appreciate everything they have in life a lot more because how little they had or how tough they had it. Now when they're given an opportunity, they go full speed with it, right? Because they know what that opportunity means, right? Compared to somebody who may have it from the beginning and may take things for granted, right? So people who go through traumatic things like that, who immigrate, they don't take things granted in my observation. So that's one of the reasons I observe that people do well.
Yeah, before we kind of get into obviously your law firm that you recently launched, I want to first ask you, Why the heck did you do 4 degrees, man? Why not just one or two like us normal people? Like, why did you have to do four?
Well, uh, in life, life takes you different paths, and you make different decisions, right? I never thought I would do anything beyond engineering. From my childhood onwards, I I initially wanted to be a mechanical engineer because I had an uncle who was a mechanical engineer from I think the age of 7 or something. Then when I discovered computers in grade 9, I wanted to go into computer and electrical engineering, and that's all I was going to do. And all these, MBA and arts and law just happened.
And then like you kind of did all these degrees, and then, I know you also like you worked at a bunch of companies. When you started your law like firm, why didn't you first work for somebody else before launching your own law firm? Out of curiosity, what was the thought process beyond that?
It's usually a good idea to work for somebody so that so you get the experience, you develop your skills, and you have people to mentor you and train you, right? To get that formal training. But things are changing now, right? I got my license right in the middle of COVID, so all the law firms are in a different situation, and also for me personally, in terms of where I am in my career, I think if I was, coming fresh out of school and I didn't have any other experiences, that path may have been better. But I quickly got advice from different mentors, and they say, given the unique experience you have, you're not just starting off. You have this unique business and technology experience from the education, but also from the different executive positions you held that most of the law students who are graduating will not have. So it doesn't make sense for you to, go work at a firm. You have enough to offer right from the get-go. And rather than, and then given where I am in my life in terms of my age and also my family responsibilities and what niche area I want to kind of focus on, right? So the advice I got was, get started on your own. You already have, like in my case, I already have a wide network, professional network that I can tap into to serve. So that's not an issue as well. So the only thing is learning. And even if you work at a law firm, you're still doing most of the work on your own, and you rely on colleagues for when you have questions. So I'm grateful that a lot of my mentors, they told me we're available to you, we're accessible to you whenever you need it, but go get started on your own. And as you grow, initially you get started, leverage your network, leverage your expertise, leverage your skills, and then maybe down the line, as you build up your practice, you could always consider merging with other firms later if that's something you want to do. But get started on your own and see what you can do. And so I just went right into it. So I think I got my 2 weeks within 2 weeks of getting my license. I did all this consulting to get advice from at least a dozen lawyers in the field and who are partners at firms, to professors and different people, right? And then 2 weeks later, I just didn't want to think further. I just got incorporated and got started. So if I kind of, it wasn't the plan right from the beginning. If it was the plan right from the beginning, I would have taken more time to plan out all the details of how I would get started. But because it was like, I just dived right into it, I had to figure out what practice areas or how will I set up my accounting or how will I set up my CRM, all these things I had to figure out, right? So,
And then in terms of, like obviously you said you want to focus on a specific niche because, there's a lot of legal firms out there. And like, so how did you want to position your own company? Like what makes you stand out? If somebody says, they want to come to, your law firm, like what are you going to be known for? This episode is sponsored by nobody. That's right, nobody. So if you could be kind enough to hit that subscribe button, that would mean a lot to me.
my technology background, my passion for technology and business, and my ability to leverage my past experience from doing my own ventures and holding executive positions, so I can understand what problems they're facing or what needs they have in order to provide the services that they need, right? So that's unique. It's not too often that you would find someone with that unique background, right? So I think trying to, I was looking for a way to find what my passion is and how I can leverage all the skills I have to serve the customer's needs, right? So I think and then if you look at the trend now, there's a lot of technology companies and a lot of technology startups, and startups is my passion. So you can, and more they need legal services from contracts, licensing, and things like that. So I'm already involved in a lot of technology startups and companies that have that are medium sized as well, who kind of take me on as like an in-house counsel on call, right? So you help them with any legal needs they have, especially contracts and licensing and so on. So it's good. So you're able to be part of their growth by advising on the legal aspect, and also with the appreciation of what business and technology problems they're trying to solve as well.
Okay. And like, beyond kind of having your own firm, like obviously you have a couple of like full-time roles, like you're also the chief operating officer at CSI, executive director at like Mosaic Labs. Like there's only on top of that, like I said, you have kids, you have a family. So there's 24 hours in a day. How does Mr. Suresh Sri, how do you get everything done in a day? Like how do you not burn yourself out?
Well, to be honest, at the moment right now, I am a bit overwhelmed because I do have lots of things going on, but primarily because of my law practice is still at the early stages. So I'm still establishing processes, establishing ways to communicate. How do you set the boundaries? How do you set the expectations for clients and things like that, right? So it's going to take a little bit of time. I expect this year to be chaotic, continuing to be chaotic, but I am juggling different roles, as you mentioned. But there is a team. I'm not just doing things randomly. There is a team. The overarching team is the technology and business, right? So if you look at what I'm doing at CSI, it is an executive position that I'm holding for 2 years now. It's looking at how do you take a company that's been around for 30 years in supply chain, logistics, and technology, and has 150 staff working, and how do you transform what they're doing? How do you diversify, go into new areas, and what's next for this company? And that kind of big transformation that the company needs is what I'm working on. So it's not that I'm too heavily involved in the day-to-day detailed operation, but it's more the business transformation. So that's interesting, and it fits my profile. And if you look at what I've done in the past, also it's similar things where I worked on M&A. I was a CEO for a media company. I was part of selling that company. So, and then Mosaic Lab again is the entrepreneurship technology entrepreneurs in Scarborough who are mostly from immigrant communities and needing the support. So I'm involved in that. And recently, I was also appointed as a lead partner for Spark Center. So that's in the East, and based out of Oshawa. Same thing. So Spark Center has Synergy Lab and Spark Center, where Synergy Lab works with entrepreneurs around the world who are trying to come to Canada through the business immigration route. And I work on the corporate law stuff to help them set up the business and whatnot here. Then with the local partners, with the local startups that they have about 150 startups in the East, and I work as a corporate lawyer for them in terms of providing advice and helping with any needs that they have. So all of this is, in a short period of time, I've been able to get a lot of client base, but it does still take time to get organized and put processes in place. But you could kind of see the team that everything is technology and business at the core, right? And mostly you're on startup culture, right? How do you take the companies from the first stage to grow it further?
So do you see yourself, like you said, you're kind of probably feeling a bit overwhelmed with kind of all that you have on your plate now, but do you see yourself continuing to kind of work at this frenetic pace for the foreseeable future, or do you have some kind of, plan to kind of wither down kind of your areas of focus that you want to kind of really hone in on in the next, 3 to 5 years?
Yeah, no, I think I think I would have to pick a few areas and kind of focus on that, like sub areas, right? Like already is business and technology, but whether I want to focus on the patent and trademark side, which is the intellectual property, or do I want to go into like technology licensing parts only, or do I want to focus on the M&A? So how do you take a startup and try to see them through an exit, right? So which aspect of it do I want to focus more on and maybe have a secondary area? But right now it is still a little bit broad. But at least I'm not like doing everything, right? Like, and that was the initial stage, another difficulty where people would come and think that I would be doing, every area of law, whether it's family, criminal, personal injury. And I had to explain that, no, I'm trying to focus on business and technology. And, you try a couple of other supplementary areas because entrepreneurs would need to like protect their personal assets as well. So I do the wills for them. And if they into investing, then I do the real estate as well. So it's good at this stage to dabble a little bit here and there in supplementary areas, but in the next 3 to 4 years, I would need to focus. As you also get stronger in once you become specialized in a couple of core areas, you focus on that, right? And I think it'll kind of come naturally, given you'll see where the clients are mostly coming to you for, and you focus on those areas, right?
And yeah, you've also, you've had an interesting background, like you said. And one of the interesting things is like, now there's more and more Tamil folks running startups and growing them bigger, and like there's more and more success stories. But you worked at kind of, like, I want to call it the OG, tech companies that were very successful and started by Tamil folks. So Labara being one, and CSI being the other, which CSI you're currently at. So how did that kind of shape your decision making and kind of, to be around folks like that looked like you weren't working at a company that had, like somebody like a Caucasian person leading. You worked at companies where the leader or the founder was somebody that looked like you. Like, how did that shape or, impact you in terms of like your trajectory as well?
No, it's because I had the other, like, I worked at Microsoft, Amazon, and I met the CEOs and so on. So I had the opportunity to work, in the US for the large multinational corporations, and then also to come into companies that are run by, by members of the Tamil community in a very successful way. It was it was a good feeling to see that what contribution they're making, not just to the community but on a global scale, and to be able to see what impact I can make by joining forces and also leveraging my previous experiences, right? And seeing kind of seeing what vision they have and how I can add value, right? But it's also it's also a good thing to see like the opportunity, right? Where people like that gave me the opportunity to excel and to contribute in a meaningful way, right? When I was at Lebara, I was, as you know, advising the CEO also on identifying technology startups that to invest in, but also to help them build that as well to grow. So these were good experiences for sure.
So you talked about like, doing M&A, and like we won't focus so much on it, but obviously it's like a very interesting topic, being able to, decide which, assessing which companies to purchase. Has there, maybe without giving away details you're not allowed to give away, but, has there been a particular acquisition that you've been part of that's like, you really got your juices going, or like was a deal that you were proud kind of getting done, whether it was like the deal structure or just kind of the size of deal? Yeah, maybe you can kind of share what your most interesting acquisition opportunity was.
Yeah, as you mentioned, without going into details, whether it's a good feeling when you kind of did the analysis and you recommended to invest in a particular startup at an early stage, and then you see that company do well, and then even though you're not personally making, seeing the rewards, but you get that satisfaction. So I've seen a couple of occasions when my gut feeling was right at the end of the day. But in terms of leading M&A, there was an online media company that I was talking about where I worked on transforming for a year and then identifying what would be the strategic fit for that company, because it's not always about the financials, but it's also about the strategic fit to see who would this company be valuable for, and then finding that and negotiating. And then in that case, there was two interested parties, in the telecom field who were interested, and then you kind of have negotiations going on with two parties at the same time and see who would be the best fit at the end of the day, right? So when the deal finishes, you feel like you achieve something great. And that's why, like, even now, continuing on the law side, that's something I'm interested in, where before that was with my technology and business background that I was putting together deals and being part of M&A activities. Now, with the legal angle, it takes things to the next level, right? Because that's at a core, like law is at the core of M&A, right? So I feel that I'll be able to add even more value, but it comes with time too, right? You need to be able to build your knowledge and build also the network to be able to do more M&A work.
You talked about, it's a great feeling when you've kind of do the assessment or analysis and like you see something there that nobody else does, and then the deal does well, and like you do well by that company getting acquired, but you never got to financially directly benefit. Are you looking in the future, because you've already had these skill sets and these experiences to kind of naturally, as you kind of build all these different entrepreneurial ventures or arms, and like you already have a pretty good network, do you see yourself eventually being a venture capitalist or like an angel or something, where like you now get to actually reward yourself financially for those intuitive bets that you made for other people?
No, definitely that's in my plans, because people who work with me or who I work for, they know that my gut feeling has been good in most cases. But it's not just luck with the intuition, but it comes from doing your due diligence as well, right? And identifying the opportunities. So definitely in the hopefully not too far future, that's something that I'm interested in. We're investing in other companies, and even already through my law practice, that's the kind of the opportunities that I'm looking for already too. Like there are situations where I can be part of startups and offering my skills or investing a little bit, and there's different models that I'm exploring already. Without going into too much details, where I'm being part of different startups.
Interesting. Okay.
But I don't get started. You start by providing the services, and if there's a fit and interest, then you have further discussions to see how you can be more involved with the team.
And I know you're like an ideas guy, you're a serial entrepreneur, so like I guess it's for the users, but also maybe for me, is like, what's a great business idea that you see that you currently can't work on because of capacity? Like you're doing a bunch of things, you don't have time, attention, etc. What's an idea that that you would put out there that's like, hey, this is a great idea, somebody go work on it?
So not a particular specific idea, but the sector that I'm interested in, that I've been looking at a lot, is actually the legal tech, right? So I'm using my law practice as a pilot project to kind of go through and see where are the pain points and how technology can be leveraged to provide solutions for the legal industry. So whether that means to the lawyers or directly to the consumers, because I feel like, when the pandemic has only accelerated the need for that, where technology would be, empowering the legal industry, and whether it's on the CRM side or on the communication piece or practice management, or just for the consumers to be able to do, self-serve a lot of the legal needs that they may have. So regulation plays a part of this, but the technology can also enable, once regulation allows, for some of the aspects.
Interesting. Yeah. Actually, it's funny. You might know her as well. Do you know Janushka with Leary?
Yes, I spoke to her recently as well. Yes.
Yeah, I think
so
she heard.
that's
So because like for me, I don't really think of legal and tech kind of in terms of like a technology play on it, but she built her and her business partner built something around that, which I find interesting, because those are the kind of spaces I feel like if you solve that problem just because they're not using technology, is a big financial reward potentially there as well. So
and I have done this actually a decade ago. Before I started the law school, I built something called Legal 360, which is a CRM for the legal industry.
Interesting.
So I've already kind of dabbled with this. Now I'm trying to see what are the other opportunities there. And, right now the thinking is around, communication, and how do you, like the whole practice management, but focusing on the client, where things are in the pipeline, checklist, because oftentimes, just in my own practice, I'm having to spend a lot of time communicating back and forth with the clients, and clients don't know where things are moving on their files, right? So just to provide more information and to have a platform, a portal for them to log in and track the work and have that communication piece would be something to get started. But there's a lot more that can be done, I'm sure.
So you said you built the Legal 360. It seems like a good idea. I mean, especially 10 years ago. before, like this tech boom that's happening. What happened to that business, or what happened to that product that you built?
Did you know that every time you left a 5 out of 5 review for this podcast, a Tamil parent lets their child pursue a career in the creative arts? Okay, that's probably not true, but if there's a chance that it is, do you really want to jinx it? Leave a review. Do it for the young creative in you.
Timing has to be right too, because you can build a product, but you got to be able to sell it. That's more important, right? So you have to be able to get law firms to get on board and using, and that takes time to have sales channels to get users to adopt, right? So yeah, but there is some work that I'm doing to kind of revive that right now as well, to at least use it for my own needs, and then see what else can be done. So
cool.
So the same tools I'm trying to revive right now and use it.
And like as I mentioned earlier, like you're also a father as well, and I want to touch on this just because you have like a bunch of degrees. Do you see education and degrees having the same kind of value that they used to have? Like, say, by the time your kids go to university, do you see education still being the same, or at least kind of these typical traditional degrees having the same value? Or what's kind of the messaging or direction you're kind of guiding your children to think about, like, education moving forward?
I think education will still be important and relevant because it gives you that framework and the ability to teaches you how to learn or how to deal with problems and so on, right? Teaches you how to learn things. That's what it is, right? But the format of the degrees or the program could be different, by the time my kids grow up, right? I'm not sure whether they'll be structured 4-year degrees and then another 3 years for law school, and spending 8-9 years to get a degree before you get started. Things may change where it's more focused on skill building and shorter programs, and you combine with work. You know what I mean? So the formats can be different. The duration could be shorter. It could be kind of self-taught and less in a structured way. As well, but the learning will still be important. Like the basic education has to be provided, right? But in terms of for my own kids, I don't try to tell them to go one way or another. But they are very young; they're 2 and 4, so a long way to go. But I just try to teach them the right habits, so the right foundation with the right work ethics, right? Like skill building and character building is all I'm trying to focus on, like family values and so on, and then let them choose their own path later. Because I don't think things will be the same when they grow up. So why should I try to direct them in one way or another? All I can do is provide what they need and then give them the space to flourish.
I like that. My kids are not 1 yet, but I'm trying to get them to contribute to the household, but they're not agreeing to do that. That's okay. So what do you like to do for fun, outside of work? Like, you obviously, like, work is important part. Like, it's also, for people like me and you, it's kind of also enjoyable. It's not like something we don't enjoy, but what do you like to do outside of quote unquote work for fun?
Well, I don't have a TV. I don't watch TV, and I'm not doing too much reading nowadays either. So for me, pretty much outside of work, it's family, right? 2 young kids, they take up every minute that I got when I'm home, right? But I make it a habit. We do live in a condo as well, so make it a habit to take them out. Even today, you just take them out regularly to ride their bikes, to go hiking. Weekends, both days, go hiking. Even at a young age, I get them out in the nature, because for me, those things are more very important. Like, I don't really feel I need to teach them to read or write right now. They'll do that when they go to school, but get them to be out there in the nature, be active, get your hands dirty so that your mind and body is active, right? So those things are important for me. And unfortunately, with the pandemic, the other thing that's important for me is that, forming those bonds, right? Like with family and others, like grandparents and so on. They're not able to see anybody right now. But when the restrictions lift, that's another piece, spending time with other family members to build those lasting relationships. Because for me, when I reflect back, it's not what I learned in school at a young age that that make up the sweet memories. It's more like the time spent with the grandparents and so on, and the little things that they did for you, whether it's making an eggplant curry or that's still in your mind, right? So I just want them to have those same memories as much as they can with their grandparents and so on. The rest will come, education and all these. Everybody will figure out their path, and I don't need to push them for that.
I love it. What's an insecurity that you have?
Good question. Insecurity. I would say, probably, I would say, like, it has changed, believe it or not. Initially was around the language skills, because I came to Canada at a young age, so I learned in French. Then when I came to Toronto, age 13, I had to learn English from scratch. So when I was contemplating law school, the language skill and my accent is something that I felt insecure about. And I thought, you know what, I probably cannot go to law school because my skills are not enough. I can't speak as well. But later I built that confidence that no, it's okay. I have what it takes, and you just have to learn and grow, right? And that's why even public speaking, and you see me doing all these videos, but these are things that I'm not comfortable doing, and I'm doing it to overcome those barriers, overcome those insecurities that about public speaking. So you seem to be natural at it, but this is not my forte.
I'm the same way as you. I would say I'm more gravitated towards being introverted, and I don't like doing public speaking. But like you, I want to be stronger, and I feel like for the things that I want to do, I need to be able to do those things at least adequately. So I think the way to get better at things is just to push yourself outside your comfort zone. So I've got better, like from when I did my first episode to like whatever I'm recording now, like it's light years better. So I know from just this exercise alone that just by doing something you're uncomfortable doing, you will get better if you actually want to get better. So
exactly. So it's the same thing for me, right? So that's number one. Number two would be, just like everybody else, trying to catch up, or whether it's where you want to be on your career or financially, and what goals you want to achieve. Like there's a lot I missed out. I'm trying to catch up, but I try to stay grounded. So by reminding myself that I'm, blessed with my family and so on, that by trying to play catch up game, you're not going to be living on at the moment. So to slow down or to kind of smell the roses as you go through, right? So try to live at the present moment as much as possible. So I try to have the discipline to do that, but it's not always easy, right? When you have a lot going on and you're a driven person by nature, you just keep going, and you keep taking on more than you should.
Yep, I can definitely agree with that. One topic I'd love to discuss with you, just because I feel like it's not really talked about, or it's like considered taboo, even though I don't think it should be, is the conversation around money and investing. So how do you feel about money, and like in terms of investing, like what is just your general like investing philosophy? Is it like, do you invest in like property, just the stock market, cryptocurrency, etc.? Just love to hear your thoughts on that.
Yeah, so I am a little bit. It depends. It changes in different stages. So I used to do day trading when I was younger, and have tried again recently. But it all depends on what you can afford to lose, right? I'm a little bit on the conservative side. Like I would only invest money that I can afford to lose. And if you're in a position, like, when you're going through school and you can't really afford to make significant investments, I didn't try to do too much. But recently, as things are, I stopped being a student, and I'm focusing only, because before I was doing all these executive roles, but I was still having to pay $100,000, $150,000 for school and life, right? So you don't get much left to invest. But I did invest on the real estate side, stock market, and now started in the crypto. But for me, those are secondary areas, because I'm not like, money is important, because it measures, part of how successful you are, but it's not everything. But it also helps you get the things you want in life. But for me, it's more about what do you want to achieve in terms of your career, and what contribution you want to make. And just getting the financial side of it, I won't feel, even if I make a lot, it won't feel like I contributed something. So, I am an engineer at heart, where you feel like you have to build a solution to help people to solve a problem. And solving a problem is not the same as making money for yourself. You understand? So I still I'm driven and I'm searching for what am I going to do to contribute. And through the law practice, I am contributing to kind of have every startup I'm helping, they're growing, but I still feel like there's more to what I can offer. So I'm looking for that.
Got it. Okay. And like you said, you haven't been reading recently, but like, is there like a book that you've read before or like a podcast that you've listened to in like the last couple of years that's really made a significant impact on you?
To be honest, like I did read a lot of books, obviously, but and watch different documentaries and podcasts, listen to podcasts. But what inspires me is a combination of multiple ones, right? Not one particular one. So it's just the different topics you listen to. Like if you're trying to learn on something, you just listen to everything possible and you reflect. But it's a combination of listening to that and talking to people to see what ideas can come out of it, right? But nothing in particular, I would say. But I used to read The Economist magazine a lot, so I would try to think about what are the big picture problems that are happening or issues that are happening, and then try to look for solutions or what trends are going to be coming up and what direction you should be heading. So that's like a starting point. Start at the big picture and then drill your way down. So I start at the economist level and then work my way down to what different areas that I want to focus on.
Okay. And what's like a new belief, behavior, or habit that's like, maybe recently improved your life?
Probably, like focusing on the moment, as I told you, and focusing on what you have, like spending the time with children and not trying to work all the time, right? Like having that balanced life and versus being driven on achieving your professional goals all the time. And, it's not that I think I had the opportunity to sit back and think through it. It just hits you, right? Once you have kids and you can appreciate that, there's no other way that unless, you want to focus. And again, these are decisions people make on an individual level, right? Because everything will have a cost. You will make sacrifices, right? So for me, my family life comes first. I'm willing to make any sacrifice on the professional end, but I cannot lose out on my children growing up. So I spend the time with them that I need to, but I know that if I spend less time with them, I could have more for my career, but it's just the choices, the decisions you make, right?
Well, yeah, like when I read or like I read a lot of interviews on like entrepreneurs, especially the ones that did well but like didn't have good personal lives. And the thing they always say was, yeah, I did well, but like what's the point of building a castle if you have no one to share it with? And it really resonated with me like when I first started, like 9-10 years ago. Obviously it's like still it's always something I'm working on, but like to your point, especially now that I'm a dad, especially like I, as someone that used to be a child, I know that there's always stages where you want to be with your parents, and at some point they don't want to hang out with you. So I'm like, there's only so many years that my kids will probably want to hang out with me, and then they'll have their friends and all that. So during that stage, I want to be as available while still kind of maintaining my interests outside of like family life. But I fully agree with you. And it's not like something I perfected. I still struggle at times with it. I know sometimes, if my kids are sick, that's like a higher priority than work. Sometimes, if everything's going well at home, but there's something crazy at work, I might focus on that. But there's no perfect, like everything's always perfect. It's like a fine balance you're always treading. So, yeah.
Yeah, and it's not always easy. You don't always accept that balance because sometimes it is frustrating, right? You're like, oh, I wish I did what I'm doing now 10 years ago when I was alone and I could focus. But it is life. You deal with things as you go through, right? So
yeah, no, I agree.
But it's not easy. It's not always easy. It's easy to give the advice and preach, but it's not. I don't want to say that it's always easy. It is challenging, and especially raising kids on your own. Whereas compared to when we grew up, it's like the whole village raising you, right? Like the whole extended family raising you. Whereas here we're kind of on our own, having to do everything, right? Mm-hmm. So it's got the pros and cons with doing that, right? With that approach.
Yeah, and often like if you look at the variables for me, it's like family life, work, and then what often gets negated is sometimes my sleep. If I'm like, I don't want to negate those two, So sleep, but I'm also like sleep is important because good sleep, results in good health overall, and it could cause issues later on. But that's a discussion for
Yeah,
later.
yeah.
Um,
I also don't neglect my sleep. I sleep
yeah,
early. I wake
yeah,
up early. I'm at the office at 5 o'clock to six
yeah,
o'clock. So I start my day early, but I don't try to sleep less than 5 hours or something. Like
yeah.
I can't function.
Yeah, yeah. No, like for me, I don't sleep less than like I would say 6.5 hours. My goal
Yeah,
is 7 hours now, but just because I've read up so much on like people like try to do all these things to be healthy, but the simplest thing you can do is like get more sleep if you want to really
yeah.
be healthy. In terms of your personal legacy, in a few sentences, like how would you want to be remembered by your friends and family?
Money can be hard to come by, but here is a $100 opportunity for you. Join my free newsletter for free exclusive content and a free chance to win $100 when I hold special draws. Did I mention that it's free?
As someone who stayed driven and who focused on contributing in meaningful ways in my own terms, right? I don't feel like I have to follow somebody else's footstep. I feel like I just want to do what makes sense to me and what makes me happy, but, contribute in a meaningful way. And someone who stayed productive throughout my life, that's it. Simple as that.
Who's one person in the global Tamil community that you admire and why? And who's one person that isn't Tamil that you admire and why?
Who's one person in the global Tamil community that I admire and why? I think right away person that comes to my mind is Radhisan, one of the co-founders of Libara, and who was the CEO and who was my boss as well. The reason why he comes to my mind right away is because he has achieved a lot in terms of building that empire and then exiting from it, and he's continuing to contribute in the field of entrepreneurship, but also giving back. And what I like about him is it's not just the business side of it and what he has achieved, but it's his personality of being humble and appreciating what he has and focusing on his family, focusing on staying grounded. And I think it's easy when as you're growing and you have all the financial resources to kind of forget your roots, and but in his case he stays grounded and humble, and that's something that I respect, and I try to kind of keep that in my mind as I go through my own life, to always stay humble and grounded and be grateful, respectful, respecting everybody around you.
And who's somebody that's like non-Tamil that you kind of admire?
So again, without thinking too much, my mentor, Steve Farlow, who's like my main mentor. And so he was the founding director of the Schlegel Center for Entrepreneurship. So when I was doing my MBA, I met him there. And he was also a runner. He continues to run, so active, fit. And he had his own business, sold it, and he started this entrepreneurship center. He's very involved in the Waterloo region as an angel investor now. So the fact that he started his own business and then gives back to the community, he's active, he's focused, grounded, focused on his family, and contributing to the field of entrepreneurship and teaching. I kind of want to be like him when I grow up. You know what I mean? You know what I mean? Like, I try to like model after everything he's done in terms of my next steps, wanting to teach, wanting to be an angel investor, wanting to do the kind of thing, being a good father, and he's now a grandfather, kind of being at that.
Okay, and
not splashing. Sorry, like again, he's also similar to Radhisan, where he doesn't splash the money, even though he's got the resources. He's careful about how he spends it. He doesn't try to show off. He just lives his normal life, a healthy life, and gives a lot of money for things that are needed to make society better, but doesn't really spend a lot on himself. He stays humble, and that's what I believe in as well. I don't think I need to show anybody what I have or what I'm trying to do. I just have to live the same way, whether I have the financial resources I have today or what I will have in 10 years, but live the same way.
And what's a piece of advice that you would give to your fellow aspiring Tamil creators out there?
Focus on what you want to do and, carve out your own path. You don't need to necessarily feel the pressure to do what others are doing. Because nowadays that can be a challenge because, social media and everything, we can easily fall into comparing what others are doing and feeling that we need to do the same, or we need that they have it better than us, and why I don't have the skills that they have, or I need to be doing better. But just be yourself and realize that, carve out your own path and be happy with what you're doing. But stay productive at the same time. Don't waste time. Like I'm a firm believer in, I'm okay with any path you take, but work hard, like be productive.
Love it. And that's a great way to kind of segue into, a fun part of our discussion, which is a game that I call Creator Confessions. So essentially,
Okay.
I'm going to say like a bunch of things and you're going to just, say the first answer that kind of comes to mind. Okay.
I've been already doing that, I thought.
Well, this is a bit more fun. So
Okay.
let's start with the first one. So favorite Tamil food.
Favorite Tamil food, I would say probably, my, what is it, hopper?
Okay. Something that scares you.
Snakes.
Me too. Favorite show that you're watching. I guess you don't watch TV, but
I don't. I watch. I don't watch any TV. Kids shows, if anything, right now.
What kids show do you watch?
Actually, even that, not too much. Curious George, but once in a while only. We don't have a TV, so once in a while I will show on the laptop.
A place you're itching to travel to after the pandemic is over.
Newfoundland, again.
Fellow Tamil creator you want to give a shout out to?
There's a lot of them. So probably Janet from Shot One Studio.
Sorry, say that again.
Janet from Shot One Studio.
Okay, got it. Favorite childhood memory?
Everything to do with my grandparents and the simple meals and playing games and eating mangoes and then playing with very little, like toys, but things we can find. Just time with your grandparents.
Pet peeve?
Just anything being messy. Things have to be in order for me, organized.
A person or celebrity that you look up to?
Person or celebrity? I'm not really into the celebrity side of things, but person would be my grandmother again.
If you knew you were going to die tomorrow, a regret that you would have?
If I knew I was going to die tomorrow, a regret that I would have. To be honest, I can't think of anything. That's because without sounding cliche, I try to always live by doing things like, at the moment in terms of what I want to do.
That's good. That's a good way to live. I know you say you don't like celebrities, but I'm going to ask you this anyways. A celebrity whose life you'd want to experience for one day.
Okay. For one day. Elon Musk.
You're like the 9th person that said him. My goodness. That guy's a marketing genius. Everyone wants to be him. And finally, a PSA that you want to leave our audience with.
I can't think of one.
Okay. I was hoping for a strong message at the end, Suresh. But, it's okay. You give some really good answers and we had some really good discussion on the other topics. So that kind of concludes the podcast, Suresh. You were awesome to talk to. You obviously have a very inspirational story. There's obviously some other challenges that you went through before you kind of became a lawyer that, people can kind of touch on. But, it was great kind of chatting with you and kind of sharing your journey and story with, people listening. And if people get inspired and want to connect with you or just, reach out to you, what's the best way for them to kind of get connected to you?
Well, I'm on pretty much every social media now and on my website as well, suresh.law. So they can pretty much get in touch with me through any of the platforms.
Awesome. Well, thank you again, Suresh, for hopping on. And for everyone listening, thank you for listening and look forward to the next episode.
Thank you once again for having me on. And it was a great conversation. I hope everybody who's listening enjoyed it as well. And thank you once again. And I wish you all the best in whatever adventures you're working on. And once again, remember to enjoy the current moment and be good to yourself in terms of appreciating what you have in life and what you have achieved, given especially the current circumstances, right? Like with the pandemic, I talk with my coworkers all the time by saying that, we have to be grateful that we're alive today, given what the times that we're living through. And that's true on the personal side, but also on the business side, right? A lot of businesses are struggling, but just just the fact that they can still hold on to it is good, because things will only get better after this, right? So just be grateful for what you have, and we'll get through all this soon.
Remember when I asked you about a PSA you want to leave the audience with? You just delivered a great PSA. So anyways, guys, he delivered the PSA at the end. That's great. It's a great way to end off. Thank you again, guys.
Thank you.